let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress Running the Numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now.
Today's main event, International First Class Awards. Are they worth paying more for? Now, you can use your miles to book International First Class.
And it's pretty nice.
And it's very nice. Or you could use fewer miles and book International Business Class, which is still very nice.
Also pretty nice, yeah.
Or pay even less and book like econ or premium econ.
And they get there at the same time.
They do. They all arrive at the same time. So we're going to discuss whether it's worth paying more for these luxury flights. First, of course, giant mailbag time. Today's giant mail comes from Saluki Mike. This is a podcast review. Saluki Mike says, most useful travel podcast. I listen to pretty much all of the Miles and Points podcasts weekly. Some are fun to hear about the hosts' travels. Some are fun because of the banter between the hosts. But Frequent Miler is the one that I think actually gives you practical advice that normal people can use. Doesn't use jargon without explaining it. If somebody were new to the hobby or just looking to get into it slowly, that I would recommend this first, because you actually get useful information along with the steps you need to do it yourself. So it's not just the host bragging like it's some secret club you can't get into. Really solid work, guys. I'm impressed. I credit you guys with helping me take advantage, of the AA portal, the American Airlines portal, Advantage portal, which got me to, now he used jargon, EXP, which is top tier executive platinum elite status with American Airlines last year, and more than halfway there for this year already. Thank you. So
congratulations.
Thank you,
very well
Saluki
done.
Mike.
Hopefully we also have some good banter now and then, Saluki Mike, but good information is important. So I'll take that. If we're only allowed one thing, then good information should be it. But I hope there's a little banter.
Yeah, it's funny that you called that out, because I was thinking the same thing when I read the part that some are fun because of the banter between the hosts, but not Frequent Miler.
None of these guys. These guys are just good for the info. It's not entertaining.
But... Hey, 5 stars. No, 5 stars is 5 stars.
Thank you. Man. Thank you for the 5 stars. We appreciate it. Very good.
We definitely do. We definitely do. That was a great review. Thank you.
It was. And I always love to hear those, because I don't look at the podcast reviews all that often, and I should probably, but I always love it when you bring one up, because I don't watch them every single week. All right, we're going to skip card talk this week in the interest of time, because I'm on location, so I should mention that also. So I am coming to you from Lake Como in Italy, at Menagio, the Grand Hotel Victoria. So if you hear church bells in the background at some point, I apologize for that. I'm going to try to mute so that you won't hear them, but I'm outside on my balcony at the hotel. So if you do hear that, that's why. But that's why we're skipping card talk this week, because we've only got limited time before the sun goes down on me. So let's talk about what crazy thing. So what crazy thing did Amex do this week, Greg?
Yeah. So Amex, this is a crazy thing that comes up repeatedly every now and then. So we have a post about how you can use credit cards to pay your taxes. And while there's a fee that's just under 2%, it can often be worth paying that fee in order to, make it a sign-up bonus. So, credit card welcome bonuses require usually anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 spend in order to earn the sign-up bonus often. And paying your taxes can be a great way to meet that big spend. And even if you don't have like that many taxes to pay, you can basically pay estimated taxes and give the government a loan, and then get that money back when you file annual taxes at the end of the year. So that's the idea. But every now and then someone writes in saying that they didn't get their welcome bonus, and it's always Amex when this comes up, and that they talked to some rep, and the rep said, "Oh well, tax payments aren't allowed." So right. Yeah.
So is that the truth? Are tax payments really not allowed? And this is a weird one, because people do say this from time to time. And first of all, if you ask a representative, the first thing I tell people all the time is I never ask a representative a question that I don't already know the answer to, because it is very, very likely that a representative will give you incorrect information, and not intentionally. It's not that they're going to intentionally mislead you. It's just that the vast majority of representatives who said this before don't eat and sleep and breathe these programs. It's a job, and they answer questions the best they can based on their understanding of things, which is very rarely based on real world experience, and more often just based on their interpretation of what they think is right, which is often wrong, just because that's the way things go. So, I wouldn't take whatever a representative tells you as like, the official word on just about anything. I would check with other people who have real world experience with it. Now, in real world experience, Greg and I have both made plenty of tax payments with Amex cards and earned welcome bonuses before. I did this year, in fact, and got the welcome bonuses as expected. So I know that it counts and it works. And I know that from firsthand experience in 2023. So I know it does work, but we have had reports of it not working. So are there any hints you have as to what it is that's causing some people to run into problems with this and how they can avoid it?
Yeah, maybe. But before I get into that, I just want to state briefly that Amex does have terms and conditions in their applications that say all kinds of things that are not considered valid spend towards the minimum requirements of spend for your sign-up bonus. But paying taxes is not in there in any shape or form. There is no term in there that I think can even be, interpreted as maybe taxes fall into that. I mean,
right.
There just aren't. So you're on very strong footing if you're told that to push back, raise it up to a supervisor, all that kind of stuff. But here's what may be happening, and these are, I would call this no more than rumors at this point. Some people who have signed up for new Amex cards, you often get a temporary card number that you can use immediately. As soon as you sign up and are approved, often Amex will ask you if you want a card number, a temporary, it's actually, usually, I think it's actually a real number, but it's temporary, like a security code that goes with it, and a different expiration date probably. But there have been some reports recently that when people have used those immediately after signing up to spend big and hit the sign-up bonus, that hasn't counted. And the theory of what's happening, and again, I have no idea if this is true, but is that once you sign up, that it's taking a little time to load that offer into your account, to load the sign-up bonus offer into your account. And so if you make the spend before it gets loaded into the computer system, that spend might not count towards your minimum spend requirement to meet the offer. So the recommendation is, ideally, if you can, just wait until the physical card comes to do your spend. If you can't, wait at least until, I'd say, the next day after you signed up to do your spend, just to give it some time to go through the system, just in case this is real. And again, I don't know for sure if this is a true story, but we've heard some rumors of this.
We have, and I'm a little skeptical of that too, because I've done some spend on those temporary numbers, like in the past year here when I got the temporary numbers, and I don't think that I've had any issue with that counting. But again, I don't know. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know if it was within hours of signing up, or maybe it was the next day that I used the temporary number. Who knows? So yeah, that's the one piece of advice I think we can give people for now. And the other piece of advice, like Greg said, is that you do have some footing to push back and say it doesn't say anywhere that you can't make a tax payment. And really, in the absolute worst case scenario, I think if you filed a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau complaint and said, listen, it doesn't say anywhere that this doesn't count, like, I don't know how Amex would stand and say, no, this doesn't count towards minimum spend, because it's just not anywhere in the terms that it doesn't. So I would push back and just have somebody put in writing, where does it say that this doesn't count?
I'll in fact add one more thing, that on the IRS's own website, on the page that lists the ways you can pay with a credit card, there's a Q&A section, and in there it says these purchases counted. The spend on the card should count as purchases. So you
won't get hit with a cash advance fee or anything like that. So I think any kind of an argument that it's a cash equivalent is very, very weak, especially when, as Greg said, they call out so many things that shouldn't count, and this is not one of them. So, and I have to believe that that's in part influenced by the IRS and the way that they word things on their site too. So anyway, good luck, hopefully, if you're in that situation where you've been having trouble getting that counted, and hopefully it will work out. All right. So that was the crazy thing. Let's talk about deal talk this week. So instead of mattress running the numbers, we're kind of rebranding this here as deal talk, right?
Yeah. It just doesn't make sense to call this mattress running the numbers today.
Right. No.
So Amazon is out with a fairly regular type of thing that comes out where they give you a ability to earn a discount off of Amazon products if you use credit card points to pay. And so in this case, this is American Express and Amazon. So if you have an American Express card that earns points, and you can link it to your Amazon account, and then once you do, you can click a link on our post that's about this deal and see what offer, if any, you qualify for. So there's various offers out there. You hopefully will get either the 40% off or 50% offers. Those are the good ones. There's 15% offers floating around as well. But the idea is you could get, like I got on, both me and my wife got 40% off of up to $150 spend on Amazon. That's pretty terrific. It's a great deal. Now it is limited to things that Amazon itself ships and sells. So all the third-party sellers, you can't use it on that stuff. But guess what? Amazon actually sells third-party gift cards. So you can buy third-party. You can't buy Amazon's own gift cards. They won't let you do that with this discount, but they will let you, buy Uber Eats and various things. Airbnb I've bought in the past, and get the discount off of those purchases.
And I just clicked the link right now because I hadn't done it. I've been on vacation and I haven't done it. So I just clicked the link right now, and the offer I got was 40% off up to a maximum discount of $60. So quick math on that. So I don't even know what that is.
$150.
$150. There you go. So 60 off, not 60 back, 60 off of $150. I mean, hello. I could buy a hotels.com gift card and save some money on a hotel or whatever. I mean, Starbucks or whatever it may be that works for you. And I think they have Safeway if you're a Safeway person, lots of different options.
Yeah. And now here's the thing. The offer, the promotion lasts, like once you click through and register for the promotion, doesn't mean that you're definitely going to be eligible for it, because it might go away. And here's the thing. The promotion will end at 5 p.m. on July 13th or earlier. It'll end earlier if 31,024 customers have already redeemed the offer.
So you want to be the 31,023rd or better, right? Where do they come up with these numbers?
1,024 customers.
Where do they come up with that stuff? Like, I mean,
I don't know.
I'd love to sit in the meeting where somebody's like, you know what? I think we should limit this one to 31,024. Actually, no, not 25. No,
was too generous last time.
No, that's right. Sorry, Bob. No, it's got to be 24.
I don't know.
So yeah, I don't know.
But the reason that's important is that Prime Day is coming up, and it's often great to stack these kind of offers with Prime Day deals, because Prime Day deals are usually off of products that Amazon sells and ships. So you already are getting a discount. Now you get 40 or 50% more off of whatever those things are. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but I think sometimes they base that 40 or 50% off on the original price, not the discount price.
We've seen that happen before. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a set of Bose headphones that went on sale on Prime Day, and they were originally something like $350, but for Prime Day they were $230. And I'm making up numbers; those were approximate, somewhere in that range. And so the 40% off was coming off of the $350 price range or whatever. Now, in this case, obviously you're capped at $60, so maybe that won't be a good example for this specific one. But we've seen instances where that percentage came on the original list price price, not the sale price. And so then you end up getting an even bigger discount off of the sale price. So again, that doesn't happen every single time or on every single product. When we've seen it, it's usually been in specific products. So you have to get lucky and find one of those. But we have seen that work out well before. So, if you have this offer and you've activated it and it lasts until Prime Day, you could use it on something like that, or hope to use it on something like that, or on one of the many other products that are on sale. Even if it doesn't give you 40% off of the original list price, it could still be a fantastic deal on Prime Day, as long as 24 people haven't used it already by then.
Right. So it's a bit of a game of chicken. I don't think I'm going to play that game. I think I'm going to just go ahead and buy some third-party gift cards myself. Now, that said, often around Prime Day, this happens with other card issuers as well. So even who knows, by the time we publish the podcast, we might have already published another deal from Citibank or Capital One or whoever. So keep your eyes out for those kind of deals, because we'll be publishing them as we learn about them.
For sure. And this is another reason why, if you're playing in multiplayer mode, it makes sense to set things up for multiple players. My wife has her own Amazon account, and I haven't yet checked to see if she got the same offer. But if she did, then that's $120 between the two of us. So just like Greg, I'm not going to mess around and wait and hope that it hangs around until Prime Day. We'll just save our $120 on something where we would have used the money at those stores anyway, and buy a third-party gift card, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's a nice little savings in a household. So check that out. Check out the post, and or Greg will, because Greg's going to be doing the podcast this week, and make sure that you have a link in the show notes, I'm sure, to that post, so you can find it.
You know what? I forgot to mention something really important. The Amazon wants you to use your points for the entire purchase, and points are redeemed at really bad value. So don't do that. Instead, just use 1 point. You have to. You don't have to buy the whole thing with points. You just have to use at least 1 point. Now, some people have offers that require a weird number of points, more than one, like 794 points or something like that. So whatever your offer says is the minimum, that's what you got to do. So pay attention to that as well. But yeah, don't use all points. It's a bad deal.
Yeah, definitely not. Just whatever the min is. Okay, good point. All right, so that's our deal talk. Let's move into a quick award talk. So just a quick double up on award talk. I wanted to mention something. So I was trying to rebook my trip to Europe over the weekend. So I'm in Europe now, and I wanted to mention that we've talked about in the past how Lufthansa often releases extra award space close in, and I just wanted to confirm that still seems to be the case. I did find 4 seats in first class on Lufthansa a couple of times, actually. There was only one flight that was going to fit for me, and by the time I got points transferred over, 2 of those first class seats were gone, so it didn't work out for me.
Oh man!
But I was surprised, because I was watching this like a hawk in the days before departure, and 2 or 3 days ahead of time, I saw 4 seats on multiple flights at a different airport. Seats.aero was really helpful in finding the different options that were out there, and I was then able to double check and see that sure enough those awards were available via Avianca and Air Canada Aeroplan. But another thing I want to mention in that regard is that there were some itineraries that I saw available via Avianca that I did not see available via Air Canada Aeroplan, and that wasn't Lufthansa first. It was business class itineraries on a number of different carriers, but there were several instances where, using Seats.aero, I noticed results when I pulled Avianca out of the list that I hadn't seen with Air Canada, and sure enough, I verified it at the website and found that those awards were on Avianca, and they were available via United Mileage Plus, just not via Air Canada Aeroplan. So I don't know close in if there's something specific wacky going on with awards and which carriers they show up with, but it's a good reminder to check around.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I also just the other day saw I could book some Turkish business class awards with United. I didn't check Avianca yet, but it didn't show up on the Air Canada Aeroplan results.
Yeah,
so maybe you could call and book it. I don't know. But
weird.
That's really weird.
I don't know what's up with that. And then the other thing I'm going to mention is that I am in Lake Como, and this Grand Hotel Victoria, you'll read about it again, just absolutely amazing. Awesome redemption if you can find availability. I don't see availability for this place yet, but I have seen that there is another property, another SLH property in Como. So that's like kind of the southern tip of Lake Como that I haven't seen available before with points. I've looked a number of times, and I do see in June of 2024 it is available on a number of dates. So so there's a tidbit if you're looking to get to Lake Como. I don't know about that other SLH property, but the one that's in Como does appear to be available on some dates anyway in June 2024.
Oh, nice. That sounds awesome.
So there you go. All right. So that wraps up award talk. So then I guess that brings us to the main event.
Yes, main event time. International first class awards. Are they worth paying more for? All right. So we just recently flew international first class, ANA, the suite. We flew from Tokyo to San Francisco. And we also flew a couple business class products around about the same time. And so the question on the table is like, is it really worth paying more? Now, in this example, we didn't actually pay more, at least in points, because we got just an incredible deal on the first class flight. And it was a deal that unfortunately doesn't exist right now, or it became less good since we booked it. So the price we paid isn't really relevant, I think, to this conversation, but oftentimes you might find international first class awards available, and they're going to cost more than business class awards, at least if you're using the same miles to book them. So is it worth it?
Good question. Well, I mean, we got a lot to talk about there, a lot to unpack. I'm going to say at a very high level, it depends on the first class product, right? And on the business class product that you're comparing against. So there's some variance there. And I guess we can talk a little bit more about that as we get to the different seat types, because I think that you'll notice a fair amount of variance in business class between various airlines, and some of them are as good or better than some first class products. And then again, when you get to the first class level, there are some that shine well above the others. And so I think that also might make some difference. And then of course it depends on the award charts and the sweet spots, et cetera. So let's talk about the seat types first, right? Let's discuss what we're even talking about.
Because I don't think everybody understands what the difference is between international first class and business class and whatnot. So let's start at the bottom. So economy. I think most people know what economy seats are. It's basically you have a seat and you're squeezed in tight between other people. You have very little leg room, and you can't recline all that much. And that's pretty much the same whether you're flying domestically or internationally.
Yeah, it doesn't change a lot. I mean, there are some carriers that maybe have slightly better food or better service internationally. But yes, overall, the experience is more or less the same with everyone. Seats are basically the same as what you get on a domestic economy class flight. But the reason that we're going to talk about these different types of seats is because it starts to become a lot different as you move up in cabins as to the difference between what you'll find domestically and what you'll find internationally. So let's talk premium economy. So what do you get when you bump up to premium economy?
Yeah. So premium economy for international flights is more like what you might expect domestic first class to be. So you generally are getting a bigger seat. You're generally getting more recline. You're generally getting more leg room. Unlike domestic first class, though, you usually with premium economy also get a footrest. And the details of how much extra leg room, how much bigger are the seats and things like that are going to vary by airline a lot. But that's basically it. You're not getting a lay flat seat.
Right. It's nicer. It's going to be more spacious. And for a daytime flight, in a lot of cases, it may provide just enough extra bump over economy to make it extra comfortable without costing you a heck of a lot more if you're flying with a program that even has a premium economy award chart and cabin. So that varies a little bit too, because not everybody has premium economy. Many do these days. And then if they have premium economy, not everybody's got a premium economy award chart. So it's not always something that you can exactly book with miles, but it is an option, and when you can take advantage of it, that's great. Business class, though, is where things really start to change, where you notice a major difference. It's not at all similar to what you might expect within the United States for the most part, and not at all similar to the economy and premium economy experience, right?
That's absolutely right. The difference between economy or premium economy and business class is huge. with most airlines. And so in most cases, international business class means you have a seat that lies flat. So you've got a lot of room. You've got a way to electronically, lay down the seat all the way back so that you can sleep on this thing. Usually there's better food available, higher end drinks, things like that. Usually you get just better service overall. Again, that varies by airline, but that's generally what you can expect from most. A lot of them also have direct aisle access from every seat. Now, this isn't true of all of them, but it's a lot more and more. It's become more and more common that what you have is like one seat along the window, then an aisle, then two seats in the middle, an aisle, and then another one seat. So they call that a 1-2-1 configuration. And that's great because you don't have to, climb over someone to get out to the aisle to go to the bathroom, or vice versa. If you don't have someone climbing over you when you're sleeping so that they could go to the bathroom. So that kind of configuration is really nice.
Yeah, and most of them have plenty of space so you could work comfortably at your seat, a power outlet, and again, the lie flat bed is really the game changer differentiator when you get to business class, because if you want to arrive somewhere rested and ready to go, then at least you have a shot at that. If you can sleep on a plane anyway, you can lie the seat all the way flat. Some will have decent blankets and pillows and maybe even some padding for the like a mattress pad for the seat. So that makes a big difference because you can arrive fully rested. And certainly, as for me, someone who travels with young kids, I find it particularly helpful because it's very easy to get my kids to go to sleep on the plane because I can just recline that seat all the way into a bed. And that's a lot easier than having a kid try to sleep like half leaning on you in economy class. So that certainly makes a big difference for us anyway.
Sure. And for getting work done, now this isn't true of all business class projects, but usually there is more room to store stuff and to put stuff on like a little table or whatever. And that to me is huge. Like, so when I flew Delta Premium Economy recently on a daytime flight, it was fine, but like there is no place but the food tray table to put stuff down. And then if, someone else on the aisle has to get up, I've got to take all that stuff off and hold it while they move out. It's a lot of, it's very inconvenient.
Right. Right.
And then if the food comes, I mean, you have to put away everything. And depending on the business class product, sometimes you don't, because you may have enough room to have your computer out and the food out and everything all at once. And so that can be really nice and really, really, really super convenient. And I know I'm nitpicking because it's like a miracle to be flying at all, let alone lying flat on on an airplane. Right. I do appreciate that very much. But yeah, there you go. It really does make a difference in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So business class, obviously, I think we both feel pretty strongly that that can be well worth the premium. And we'll talk about what those are in a minute, or at least it's an experience that is far better than what you get in economy or premium economy in general. Yep. So there's a big difference there. But now when you get to first class, what's the difference when you get to first class, Greg?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So, international first class is higher up than business class. But, so what do you get? So you get a live flat seat. Well, you've got that in business class. Usually more room than you would get in a comparable business class. But so you've got more room. Usually you're talking about even a higher level of food and drink type of service. So like on some airlines, you're going to be served caviar and really top shelf liquor and things like that. So if those things are important to you, that can make a big difference. But overall, I'd say that as a class or as a type of seating arrangement, it's open to interpretation what the difference is between business class and first class.
It truly is. And, I think that it's going to vary a little bit by airline and what you enjoy in terms of the premium experience. So I think in some cases, the service is going to be a bit more tailored to your liking, and the food maybe slightly higher end. Like you said,
Mhm.
you might have access to many of those top shelf sort of liquors and champagnes, etc. But it's worth mentioning that in some cases, the difference in experience could be very slim. So just recently, Greg and I both flew on American Airlines. He flew in business and I flew in their flagship first, which they are discontinuing eventually. So in their defense, they recognize that they don't have a particularly competitive first class product. But really, the difference between business and first on that was very slight. There's more space in the first class seat. It's wider.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit more comfortable. Slightly bigger tray table. The seat in flagship first actually turns sideways so you can face the wall and do your work if you'd like to. So there's a second desk. But apart from that, there was like one entree that was a little bit different. It wasn't even a particularly exciting entree. I can't recall off the top of my head what it was. And there was one more type of red wine and one more type of white wine, neither of which was a particularly fancy bottle of wine. They were
Yeah.
both California wines, and I can't recall exactly what they were, but I looked them up, and neither one of them were particularly fancy. Champagne was exactly the same in business and first. So very little difference in terms of the soft product differences. The Casper bedding was nice in first class. I'll give him that. But other than that, not much
Yeah.
difference at all.
Yeah. I've flown American Airlines first class before, and I flew this business class, and yeah, I don't really feel like there's a tangible difference there in my experiences. Is it better? Yeah, a little bit. But I wouldn't go out of my way.
Very little bit. Very little
Yeah,
bit.
very little bit. Very little bit.
And
But as you said,
yeah,
Nick, it varies by carrier. I mean, there's
right.
other carriers where it's extreme, the difference. Take Lufthansa, for example, where their business class, well, it depends on what aircraft they're flying, but a lot of their business class products are really old, where the configuration is 2x2x2, which means if you're not in the middle section, you are going to be climbing over someone, or they're going to be climbing over you to get to the aisle. And it's just not a competitive product in any way. They're business class. First class, though, you're talking about, direct aisle access, but way, way more room. You're actually very beautiful cabin and incredible service and food and everything. So
and access to an entirely separate terminal if you're flying through Frankfurt, right? There's an entirely separate first class terminal, right?
So that introduces a whole nother thing. With some carriers, there are what are called ground services. So what the treatment you get on the ground in the airport, that is often only available to first class passengers and not business class. Or in the case of Lufthansa, they have it all staggered. So they have like they have their first in Germany, they have their first class lounges. Then they have their I think it's called Senator Lounge, which is the business class lounge for those flying Lufthansa business class, but not for those flying partner business class. And then they have their business class lounges for the riffraff who are flying business class elsewhere. And then I guess that's it for their lounges. But the first class lounge, it's not, when you're flying first class, it's not just the lounge, which is amazing, that is special. It's also other things that go around with it. Like, so for example, at the very least, you are likely to be escorted to your plane if your plane is like at a gate where you could walk inside the airport. But if your flight is out on the tarmac somewhere, you may get driven to your airplane from the lounge. So that happened for my family and I. We were flying to Paris for Lufthansa first class through Munich. And we get off the plane in Munich and we are escorted directly to the first class lounge. There was no passing through immigration security type of stuff, just right into the first class lounge, where they asked for our passports. So they did all of the immigration processing for us while we enjoyed the lounge. Then they called our names, said it's time to board after we'd enjoyed the lounge. And we go outside from the first class lounge. There's a door to the outside to the tarmac where our Mercedes and driver is waiting for us to drive us to the airplane. And the whole thing happened in reverse when we came home the same route. So that level of ground service and feeling special is both slightly embarrassing, but also just incredible, and not something that you're going to get in business class like ever.
Right. Well, and I want to add to that so that the whole soft product thing, I mean, and that varies from one airline to another, but can be a huge differentiator. But then also, I think I want to retouch on what you said about the difference in product can also be pretty significant in some cases. And Lufthansa is a great example, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you know better on this than I do, but I don't think that they're launching the new product until 2024. So I think still, to my knowledge, all of their routes are the old 2x2x2 business class that you're talking about. And I think the in-flight entertainment screen on those is like 14 inches or something like that. And you compare that to ANA, the suite that we just flew. And I think, don't quote me, but I think that's like a 48-inch or 50-inch screen or something like that. It's like something ridiculous.
It was enormous.
Yeah, it was enormous.
Yeah, no. So let me correct you. They do have some
inches,
aircraft that they bought or borrowed or something from other carriers. So they have some that are flying with decent business class today. In fact, when I last checked, Detroit to Frankfurt was on one of these other aircrafts that have a good business class. So they do have aircraft that have a good solid.
Good to know they have a better business class. Good to know. So all right, and they are launching new products in the coming year that should be more competitive.
Eventually, that'll come out. Yep.
But it makes for a good example anyway, in the sense that there can be wide difference depending on which one you're talking about. In many cases, the difference is not huge, but in some cases, the difference can be quite big. So it varies in terms of what it is you're after, what matters to you a little bit. So, all right. So we talked a little bit about the experience there and what's different between business and first. And I think we both agree that the difference between business and first sometimes is very small. And sometimes, if you value all of those other ancillary things, can seem decent anyway, but it depends on the price, like anything else in the world. So let's talk about the award costs and how they compare.
Yeah. So we pulled out a few little examples from award charts to see what is economy versus versus business class versus first class costs and everything. So let's just give a couple examples here. Using American Airlines, because they still publish an award chart that shows how much they charge to fly on their partners, like to fly Qatar or British Airways or whoever. So American Airlines to fly to Africa from the US is the example I'm going to give. In economy, 40,000 miles. Premium economy, 65,000 miles. So they're charging a really big percentage, like over 60% more for slightly more legroom. I mean, that's a surprising to me. Business class, 75,000. So only 10,000 more than premium economy. So that to me is a very interesting comparison, because like they're pricing premium economy way higher than economy, and then business class just a little bit higher than premium, and that's opposite how we describe the difference between them. So just find that kind of fascinating.
No, that is, because that's a huge jump. I mean, it's totally, I think, like a no-brainer to you and I that it would be worth the 10,000 additional miles to bump up to business over premium economy, right? I mean, like that shouldn't even be
not even
a calculation, right?
Like, right.
If you've got the miles to do it, it might even be worth buying the miles at like whatever it is that American charges if you needed the extra 10,000 miles per passenger, right? I mean, I think that's a couple $100 or whatever it might cost to do that. And also, I think when we look at the difference between economy and business there, so 40K for economy, 75K for business. So it's almost double. Business is almost double economy. And I think that's an interesting point comparison too, because if you think of an economy class ticket as costing then say, I don't know, I mean, to Africa, it might be quite quite high. Let's say $1,000. Is business worth $2,000? Well, that's a question. I think the answer might be different for a lot of people. But I think if you have the $2,000 to spend anyway, which is to say if you have the miles to spend, I think the difference in experience is double. In my mind anyway. I think that in general,
easily,
if the cash difference between an economy ticket and a business class ticket were double, the business class tickets cost double, then I think I would not fly too many economy flights anymore, because a business to me is worth double what economy would be in most cases.
And if you think about it, like from the airline's point of view, one business class seat is probably taking up at least as much space as maybe 4 economy seats, something like that. And so the idea that it's only double and not even quite double is pretty good considering that.
And if you look at cash prices in reality, the difference between an economy class ticket and a business class ticket is often 7, 8, 10 times.
Yeah, it's usually much more than that.
Or more. Yeah. So it's a much smaller difference when you're using miles than it is when you're using money.
Right. That's usually true. And now first class, though, to Africa, and this is anywhere in Africa, using American Airlines miles from the US, $120K. So it is 3 times the economy price to fly first class, or 60% more than business class.
That's
now, it is quite a bump. And whether or not it's worth it, again, we go back to it's going to depend on the airline we're talking about. So if I don't know that American even flies this route, but if it was American Airlines itself, obviously, the answer. The answer is no, it's not worth it. And in a similar but different way, Qatar has such a good business class product that even though they do fly some routes with first class, I don't think it'd be worth it there to pay extra, because you're getting such a first class like experience with Qatar for the business class price. But then other airlines, it might actually make sense.
Let's give an example there, because I think Qatar is an excellent example in the sense that they even market their business class as first in business, right? Because it's like almost a first class like experience in business. So anybody who has flown Qatar first seems to say it's nice, but it's probably not worth a huge premium over business, especially if you're able to fly Q suites. However, an instance where you might find it to be worth more, and I think maybe Greg will agree with me on this, we'll see, is if you were able to fly Etihad to Africa using your American Airlines miles, and they had the apartments flying between New York and Abu Dhabi, because then in that case, now all of a sudden, the difference between business and first class is pretty big, right?
Is huge. So there are certain airlines that have first class products that are leaps and bounds above what you'd find in business class. Etihad Apartments is one of those airlines that has that just on their A380 aircraft. Another one
right now they're not flying it between New York and Abu Dhabi, as far as I know. Right. So this is just a theoretical example.
It's a theoretical example. Right now they're only flying between London and Abu Dhabi, but who knows? Hopefully they'll bring back more of the routes. Other examples where it's like a whole nother class of thing that you're getting is Singapore Suites. So in both of these cases, you're getting basically more like a room than a seat. There's walls that go nearly to the ceiling. You're getting a lot of space beyond just the seat. So it's really, really special in those cases. Emirates has a new product that's kind of like that. So unfortunately, they don't really have a name for it that distinguishes it from their old first, but Emirates new first, I guess.
A lot of people call it the game changer first. It's
the game changer first, which is supposed to be one of the best of the best. And Lufthansa is coming out with something like this in a year or two. So look for that as well. We don't know if it'll be available to book with awards though, but we'll see.
Right. So there are some limited instances where, we might consider something like that 60% premium over the business class price. Though specifically when we're talking about using American Airlines miles, your options for flying first to Africa, correct me if I'm wrong, would be like British Airways, and that might be it, because I'm not sure that Qatar even flies any first class.
Oh, Qatar Oh, first class for first class.
between the
I
U.S.
see
and
what you're saying.
yeah,
I'm
and
not
Doha.
sure. Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sure
I'm
that
not
they
sure.
do.
Um,
It might just be British Airways at this point that you'd have
it's
the
more of
the
a
ability.
hypothetical. Well, you could
Yeah.
go the other way. You could fly Cathay Pacific. I mean, they've really limited how many
Does
first
American allow you
class.
to route via Asia from Africa? I don't think American Airlines allows you
Oh,
to.
do they
Alaska
not?
did,
Okay.
but no, American, I don't think
Yeah, I
does.
don't know.
So American has some complicated routing rules. So yeah, but I think it's a good point in the sense that there are some different rules in terms of which way you can go, which carriers you can use. But generally speaking, I think we would both agree that most of the time, paying 60% more than the business class price for a first class experience is probably not worth it. At least I think in both of our opinions, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But AA doesn't always charge that much more for first than business. This was one example. Now you mentioned to me before we started the show about their prices from Middle East to Asia. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so from Middle East to Asia, and this is true of both Asia 1 and Asia 2. If you're familiar with the American Airlines word chart, they split Northern Asia, so to speak, which is Japan, Korea, and China is Asia 1, and then the rest of Southeast Asia is Asia 2. And the price is the same in business or first between the Middle East and either of the two Asia zones. It's 40,000 points or in miles one way in business class between Middle East and Asia, and it's 50,000 one way in first class between Middle East and Asia. So in that case, it's only a 10,000 mile difference between business and first. Now, I guess that's a 25% difference if you're doing percentages. But in that kind of a case, you'll have to look then at the products that you have the option to fly. Because, for instance, if they have Etihad Apartments, which is something that they have had in the past on routes to Asia, then it could certainly make again a no-brainer type of sense to pay the additional 10,000 miles to fly first class. So that can be worth paying the additional for. So the difference is small sometimes.
Back to the Cathay Pacific example.
Right.
Maybe this is more better example here. I haven't flown Cathay first, but it's gotten great reviews, and so I have flown Cathay Business, which is good. But it's not, to me, it didn't really differentiate itself from most other good business class products. I think first class would, so I would probably pay for it if that was an option.
Yep, absolutely. And even, even if you're flying, for instance, the Etihad 777 in first class, I flew that before, and I'd probably pay the additional 10,000 miles over their business class to fly in their first class just for the slightly better experience, better champagne, etc. And I should caveat that with the fact that I haven't flown Etihad in a while now, so I don't know what cutbacks they've made and what differences there are between business and first. You'd probably have to go check your reviews in terms of your routings and whatnot. But I've used that sweet spot before. I flew Cairo to Abu Dhabi to Tokyo in Etihad first years ago. So the point here, though, is that there are situations like that where the premium to fly first is not that much more. And by a similar token, when we mentioned that Greg and I both recently flew American Airlines, we flew from Sao Paulo to the United States, and the difference flying from Sao Paulo to the continental U.S. On the flight that we booked, because it can vary when you're flying American Airlines, but on the flight we booked, it was a 10,000 mile difference between flagship business and flagship first. So I paid the additional 10,000 miles, said, and I'll fly it one last time. In hindsight, I wish I had just saved my 10,000 miles. It wasn't even worth that much in that situation. But the point is that sometimes the difference can be quite a bit smaller than what we're talking about between business and first. So
and American Airlines to Africa was one example. Let's talk about Aeroplan for a second. So Air Canada Aeroplan, we looked at North America to Africa or South Africa specifically. So it's basically they have a combination of a zone-based and distance-based award chart. So if you fly the longest distance, if you get into that, most expensive band, which South Africa would surely take you to, then here's the prices. Economy 70,000. That's way more than American would charge. But business class 110,000, and first class 140,000. So the economy to business class is huge jump of 50,000 points
difference, right?
Yeah, a little more than that, and then 30,000 bump from business to first. So again, So that's 27% bump from business class. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I wouldn't. These prices are pretty high. Um, you could do better with using some other miles for this example, but just to talk about relative amounts, you're talking first class is double economy, and certainly can be worth way more. I mean, we've talked about early in the show that business class can be worth double economy easily, and so to go all the way to first class, if you could find a good product like Aeroplan, you could book, for example, Lufthansa first class, fly through Frankfurt and get all those amazing ground services that I described. So that would be I think that would be again a no-brainer. If you have the points, I would pay the 30,000 more over business class, even though that's a lot.
And certainly compared to economy class, I think that that's really where the jaw-dropping difference comes in, right? Because I don't know what Lufthansa charges for a first class ticket between the United States and Africa, but it's surely a lot. I looked recently because I was looking at flights just one way from the US to Europe. And, as a one way, you're always going to pay more than if you were buying a round trip. But the cash prices were in the $15,000 range for a one way from New York, Washington, D.C. to Europe in first class. So all the way to South Africa, for instance, I imagine wouldn't be far less than that, probably at least that much or more. And so, that's way more than double whatever they're charging for economy class on that route. So being able to get first class for double the economy class price, I think is one of the things that makes this hobby amazing. You could fly in first and be eating caviar and eating, and drinking decent champagne. Whether or not it's worth the 27% over the business class price, well, again, that's going to vary based on your perspective and opinion and what your business class example is. Because if you're comparing to Lufthansa business class, yeah, I think it probably is worth the 27% increase to fly first for the better food and better in-flight experience. If you're comparing to, say, I don't know, Turkish business class, maybe not. I don't know, because that has a pretty good reputation for good food, comfortable seats, etc. I haven't actually flown long haul Turkish business, so I can't necessarily speak from experience on that. But anyway, so I think it's going to depend on what your options are. And the nice thing with Aeroplan is that you'll have tons of different options, so lots of different airlines that you can potentially fly. So, all right,
yeah.
What about a different example? One more example. Let's talk about flying to Europe, or at least maybe two more examples. So Avianca Lifemiles to Europe charges 30,000 miles in economy class, 63,000 in business class. So a little more than double the economy class price for business class. And as we've both said a couple times already, I think that if you have the points to use,
that seems reasonable.
That seems reasonable to me. Yeah, paying double for business class. Again, like if an economy class ticket to Europe from New York, because I'm a East Coast kind of a person, it's usually going to be $500 or less each way. So if I'm able to pay essentially like $1,000 for business, I would pay $1,000 for business if that was the difference in cash. Obviously, it isn't in cash; it'd be far more usually in cash. So paying the double for a business class award with Avianca Lifemiles is almost a no-brainer to me. First class, they charge 87,000 miles. So it's 38% more than business class to fly first class. Now, your only option for flying first class with Avianca Lifemiles to Europe would be Lufthansa. And, is that worth the 38% premium? I don't know. What do you think, Greg? Is it worth 38% premium to fly Lufthansa first if you could?
It's tough because, let's say your options aren't Lufthansa's bad business class, but you could either fly one of several good business class options to Europe or Lufthansa first class to Europe. It's not obvious to me that you should definitely do that. And it depends on circumstances. So if you're flying directly to Germany, and that's it, you're getting off the plane in Germany, you're not going to experience many of the great ground services that Lufthansa offers. Those things happen either if you're starting your journey in first class in Germany or you're connecting through Germany to somewhere else. So that's got to be part of your equation. How long your layover is matters. So I would, if you had like a 6 to 12 hour layover, I would be willing to pay more for sure to spend that time in a Lufthansa first class lounge instead of a business class lounge, without question. So those are the kind of things I would be thinking about when doing this. I would be more excited about flying. So in the reverse. So if you're coming home from Europe, booking and specifically from Germany, especially booking Lufthansa first will get you into not just the first class lounge, but the first class terminal. They have their own building for those who are departing Lufthansa first class that you can go into and enjoy before your flight. And so that can be really special.
Absolutely. Agreed. And I think that I also hesitate a little bit based on the flight length. So, when you're talking about flights to Europe, depends on where you're starting from. As somebody who's East Coast based, if I'm starting from New York, I'm looking at, maybe a 7 or 8 hour flight to Germany. Is it worth a lot more to fly that 7 or 8 hour flight in first class? And especially if I'm connecting somewhere else in Europe anyway, then I look at it and I'm like, well, I don't know. Is it like, I just need a bed to sleep for 6 or 7 hours. If I can fly somebody else with a flat bed, I don't know if it's worth. If I can fly United Polaris, for instance, which, I think we both agree is pretty nice, then why wouldn't I just do that for quite a bit less if I'm not going to get that much time to experience it. But if it's going to be a long flight to Asia or something along those lines, well, then maybe that first class experience would make more of a difference. So speaking of that, I think we should talk quickly about Japan Airlines business versus ANA First that we recently flew, or AA business we talked about there. But so if you're flying to Asia, for instance, and you have the option to fly, in ANA or JL business class, which we recently flew with American Airlines miles. And from the West Coast, we paid 60,000 miles one way in business class, right?
Right. With American Airlines miles and
American Airlines miles.
Right. So we flew Japan Airlines. So this is 2 Japanese carriers. We flew Japan Airlines business class to get to Tokyo from San Francisco. And we later flew back from Tokyo to San Francisco on ANA first class. So we have it's not the same carrier, so it's not really an apples to apples comparison, but we do have recent experience flying the same route, but in different directions, business class versus first class. Here, just some quick thoughts. So Japan Airlines business class, tons and tons of leg room, very private. It had sort of walls around you, doors that close, if I remember right. Did they close? Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah, they did.
And so that part was similar. Both products had lots of leg room and doors that close. Both had good service. I mean, it was more extraordinary in first class, but both were very good service. The biggest physical difference is the Japan Airlines seat and suite is kind of narrow, and there's no place to put stuff. So you don't have any shelf or anything to put stuff down. It was kind of like the problem I had with Delta Premium Economy. I had nowhere to put stuff except my tray table, and I found that very awkward. ANA first class, we had endless space, so that was huge. And then of course the level of additional food and drink. So we didn't try to do a whiskey tasting on the Japan Airlines flight, so I can't tell you what level of alcohol they had there, but I'll tell you that on ANA we did a whiskey tasting, and we were served a whiskey that if we had bought it separately, it would be over $1,000 a bottle. And it was actually pretty fantastic and fun experience. So that's the type of thing that, that really stands out, but a lot of people aren't going to really value that much, I think.
Right. No, I think it really varies in terms of whether or not you would find that to be interesting or exciting, to do that kind of thing. And certainly if you don't drink alcohol at all, then that takes away one of the things that I think a lot of people enjoy about the first class experience is the higher end alcohols that you can try that you probably wouldn't buy or may not be likely to buy anyway on the ground. So yeah, I mean, I think so here's, let me run an example by you. So it was 60,000 points from the West Coast to Asia to Japan on Japan Airlines in business class. Virgin Atlantic nowadays, I believe, if I'm looking at the award chart correctly, between Japan and the Western US, charges 72,500 miles one way in first class. But ANA has surcharges. So you're talking, what, $450-ish worth of surcharges. So what do you think? If your options were 60,000 American Airlines miles and like just whatever the $20 in tax or whatever it might have cost in taxes, or 72,500 Virgin Atlantic points and $450 to fly ANA first class, is first class worth the premium to you?
I mean, I'm going to go with yes.
I love hearing Greg struggle on this because he wrote that his conclusion, in advance when he was writing this out, his thoughts on this. I know he was going to say that it's not worth, paying the extra for first, but you can't help yourself, right, Greg?
I can't help myself in that case. So I'm going to jump ahead of my conclusion because I think it's still a good general conclusion, which is that in general, it's probably not worth the premium, the extra price to pay, unless the flight itself, the first class flight itself, is part of the travel experience you're looking for. And that's where it really is such a big deal. So all that stuff I was talking about with the Lufthansa ground services that are so good, if you're looking forward to that in itself, you want to experience what it's like to be driven to the airplane and things like that. Or if you want to experience what it's like to do a top shelf whiskey tasting in the sky, or shower in the sky with like Emirates or Etihad, or have a suite to yourself with Singapore or Etihad or Emirates. These are all things that I think, that's the experience you're going for. It's not just you're trying to get from one point to another in comfort. And if all you want is to get from one place to another in comfort, usually business class is good enough.
And I want to mention on that note that I find business class to be well worth it. And I know a lot of people primarily redeem their miles for economy class, and that's great if that's the way you want to travel. If it enables you to travel more and you're happy with flying economy, that's awesome. I think it's worth mentioning, though, that what I find to be worth it for flying business class is the ability to arrive rested. So I'm not jet lagged the first day usually. And maybe I'm unique in that way because I don't experience as much jet lag perhaps as some other people do. But I like, arriving and knowing that I will have slept because I can sleep in those lie flat beds most of the time. And as somebody who travels with young kids, I get asked this from time to time. I saw a question come in this week about, is it a good idea with toddlers, with young kids? Is it worth it, et cetera? And to me, at this point, I can't imagine flying a 10 or 11 or 12-hour flight with my kids in economy class, because the extra space in business class, or first, obviously, but certainly in business, is so clutch to me because, there's more room for them to move around without bothering anybody else in the cabin. It's easier to lay them down and get them to go to sleep by themselves without leaning over on anybody else. And then, I'm not stuck in that position where, oh man, if I move a little bit, I'm going to wake them up and they're going to be crying and et cetera. So I find it to be a much, much better experience for traveling with kids. It makes my life a lot easier. It makes it far easier for us to travel to Europe or to Asia with the kids because of those abilities to have that extra space. So I totally find it well worth it. And I think Greg does too, in terms of comfort, to fly in at least business class. Now, I do get excited about those first class amenities. So I am somebody who would get excited about, oh man, I'm going to get these, get this treatment on the ground and, get this extra special, this or that in first class in the sky. Is that something I'm going to pay for all the time? No, probably not. And a lot of times it's not even going to be a possibility. With Lufthansa, for instance, they only release availability for their first class cabin within like 15 days of travel, and sometimes even only within 2 or 3 days. So it's not even something that's practical for a lot of people in most cases. But I find the difference between economy and business. I find business to be totally, absolutely worth it to me internationally. Domestically, not so much.
So that's good. I think that brings us to the end of the main event. And I have a question of the week if you don't.
Well, I do. It was related to this, but if you have a question, go ahead. You go with your question, and maybe I'll add one.
Here's a question. This is a fictional question from Joe, somebody who listens to the podcast.
All right.
Are you guys completely out of touch? You guys talk about buying business class flights to everywhere. What do you have conversations about, like what car to get? Do you talk about why you settle for a BMW when you could be driving a Lamborghini? What is wrong with you guys? I don't have that many miles. I can't fly business class all the time. So don't you think that's a
Okay.
realistic question, given what we've been just talking about?
That's an excellent question. It's an excellent, and that I think that obviously Greg and I focus a lot of our time and effort on earning lots of miles, and so we earn tons of miles each year using lots of the various techniques that we write about on the blog. So we do earn more miles than most people, and that's through a variety of means. If you look up our various resources on ways to increase spend and get most of it back, our manufactured spending complete guide, the ways to pay taxes with your credit cards. There's a lot of different resources that we have out there. If you click on our resources page for earning more miles, we earn miles through referring people to new cards, including our own family members to new cards, and obviously new card welcome bonuses whenever we can. So we do focus a lot on that. And people sometimes ask, how much time do I spend doing that kind of thing? And I do spend quite a bit of time focusing on ways that I could be earning more miles, but that's because I really enjoy these experiences that they give me. I mean, I just flew to Europe in business class, 4 passengers, something I would never spend the money on, even if I felt like I had the money to afford that. I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't fly that. I wouldn't take the trip if I couldn't have done that with miles. So I just flew my family to Europe. I'm staying at a hotel that I've written about before, that the base room this week costs $1,750 a night. There's just no world I can imagine where I'd be paying that. But
Right.
because I'm using miles and points, I'm able to do it. So I'm motivated to earn as many miles and points as I can because I enjoy these experiences and I want to have them. The hotel I'm at now is fantastic. It's amazing. It's a place I'd love to come back to again. So I want to focus on the ways to earn those points. And we write quite a bit about those, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're all about. This is ways to earn miles. And as our tagline, earn miles without flying. I mean, most of the best ways to earn miles do not involve earning them through travel. Instead, you earn them other ways, and then you spend them to travel, and that's how you get your luxury travel for less, or just more economy travel for less. Either one, whichever floats your boat. But at some level, I do feel like it must sound like we're way out of touch.
Oh yeah,
but we're not. Like, it's not because we're bloggers that we magically have all these miles. It's because we do the things that we talk about and write about.
Right. Yeah, we put them into practice all the time. That's where it comes from, and it's not not a case of me buying business or first class tickets. I don't buy cash business or first class tickets, at least not with money from the bank. If anything, maybe with points, if there's some way to leverage points in that way. But yeah, so it's not like a world that I exist in because I'm willing to spend the money for it. It's a world I exist in because I'm willing to put in the time to earn the miles to make it happen. So that's a great point. And one that certainly, like you said, Greg, I'm sure it does sound out of touch in the sense that none of my friends are paying for business for first class and fancy hotels. It's not the social world I exist in by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure that the travels that we do sound ridiculous to the people in our family and our and our friends, but again, that's why we play this game and why we write about it and why this is what we do for a living, is talking about ways that you can do it too. So and lots of people do, because we hear from readers all the time that are able to do. In fact, just at breakfast this morning, a reader came up to me here at the hotel who said, "Hey, thanks so much for writing about this place and for writing when there was availability, because they were able to take advantage of it and be here this week also." So it happens all the time. So all right, I'm going to tag one more question of the week on, because it's relevant to today's topic, and it was from a couple weeks ago, but it was a good one. So somebody wrote in and said, "Hi, I jumped on the past United award sale and booked 30,000 mile awards due to being a Gateway card holder for my family from Houston to Sydney over Thanksgiving next year. I have no elite status with United, so the 30,000 mile awards were in economy class from Houston to Sydney, Australia." It says, "I have no status with United. I do have gold status with American Airlines and an offer to buy up to platinum for like $1,350. If I status match, so if I buy up to high level status with American Airlines and I status match to United, do I have a decent shot at an upgrade from economy to presumably to business class? I wouldn't normally consider buying up, but am I going to be able to get upgraded? So we've been talking all about this great difference between economy and business class. So is elite status going to help you get upgraded to that experience internationally?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's really easy to answer. No, it's not going to help you at all.
No.
Airline elite status, in most cases, helps you get free upgrades for domestic flights or short distance international flights. Not
Like
hardly
to the
ever
Caribbean
for exactly, hardly ever for any long distance overseas flights. And when they do, it has more to do with earning some kind of upgrade instrument, which you're not going to get from a status match. And then, so you're not going to have that upgrade certificate to apply. So no, it's not going to help you. But it's great that you asked and found out ahead of time.
And I think that it fits in today's conversation, right? Because we're talking about flying business and first. And so if you've ever thought to yourself, oh man, I should chase elite status so that I can fly international business class, get upgraded to international business class, that's just not something that's going to happen. That's a world that's available to you with miles, but not in most cases with elite status. So, so keep that in mind. All right. Yep. That brings us to the end of today's show. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, you want to go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Again, that's frequentmiler.com/subscribe. Join our email list, follow us on all the various social media, and wherever you're listening to this show, or please leave us some feedback, give us a like, a thumbs up, subscribe, enable notifications. We appreciate all of those things. And if you have a question that you'd like to be considered for a future question of the week or a piece of feedback for a giant mailbag you'd like to be considered, please send that too.
Mailbag@frequentmiler.com. Bye, everybody.